Hi everyone, welcome to the podcast. We are back from having a bit of a break. Today's session is going to be a bit different. I've got a co-host, Adelaide, and I've got my fiancé here, Yosef, and we're going to talk about, well, I lost my words there, relationship and the impact of adoption, and I'm really excited to be on the other side.
Yeah, it's very exciting to be on this side. I mean, the power.
She loves it.
No, it is very exciting to be here, and I feel really honoured that you trust me with this. I think one of the things that I'm so excited about is that you two have known each other for actually quite a long time, and your relationship is relatively new in comparison to the length of you guys knowing each other. And so you've kind of journeyed together, and I think that that's going to be a really great conversation for today. I think we're going to just quickly start with Yusuf. You're new to this. You're new to this podcast. You're new to our audience.
Yes.
So who are you?
Many things. Well, the reason I'm on podcast is because I'm a fiancé. But yeah, I don't know how to explain me. It's always a difficult question when you get asked that particular one. But in short term, I guess I love the outdoors. I work in sales. I didn't used to enjoy looking into stuff about emotions and relationships. But, the journey has got me to a point where I needed to, and I saw the benefit of that. Obviously, with regards to the relationship with my family and my friends has been a game changer when I started to look in and get an understanding that connection and vulnerability and creating safety is a big thing.
Yeah.
That journey has been hard and difficult because a lot of it's let's say challenging to the ego. It has been a journey itself, but yeah, I enjoyed it. That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, amazing. And, we're very excited to have you, and we might go easy on you, but we might not.
I gave you food.
I just think we'll have a quick chat about some of the themes that we're going to go into today. And just as a bit of a understanding that this is going to be really about how their relationship has kind of grown and what elements of the adoption have triggered in their relationship. So I really hope that there are some things that you as the audience will find, relatable and understandable, but we also don't expect you to consider everything that they've gone through to be the key standard or the right thing or the wrong thing. It is their relationship, and it's really amazing that they are willing to tell us about it and open that door for us, because that's really exciting. Some of the themes that we're going to be chatting about: some low self-esteem, some fear of rejection, fear of abandonment, fear of change. And I just think when we get into some of these stuff, I would like people to remember that just because they're very key to the adoptee experience, they are not solely the adoptee experience. Yeah. There are people in this world who fear those things as well, who have gone through different things. We are looking through a very specific lens.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's important to disclose.
Yeah. All right. First question off the rank is, tell us a bit of your background or your upbringing and your relationship to Ethiopia and the Ethiopian culture. I'm going to start with Yusuf because...
I'm getting targeted, huh?
Not so much targeted, but I think one of the really beautiful and interesting thing about your relationship is that you, Yusuf, are Ethiopian. And I think that is something that we'd love to get a sense of.
Yeah, and plus they hear me enough. Like, I talk so much that I feel like I'm okay for you to share today. So yes, you're going to be sharing a lot more.
No, I like it. That's what I signed up for, huh? But yeah, obviously I grew up in Sudan. My family is Ethiopian. All of them kind of grew up in Ethiopia. I'm just very blessed, I guess, to have the family I have and the journey that I've been on. But in regards to the culture, I've been around it my whole life. But it's funny because if you have to, when we sit down, my sister comes to my house and they ask her who's more Ethiopian. my parents and my whole family, without hesitation, they're like, well, it's not really up for discussion. She is, because she knows, she speaks the language, she looks into the culture, she listens to the music, while me, I'm just like, almost by association, I'm Ethiopian. But yeah, I think that's been my journey. I love my culture. I'm starting to understanding a bit more of it, and learning more of it. But yeah, I think I kind of strayed away from it for a while. But now I'm kind of reeling back in, seeing the beauty of it, obviously, and relearning the language, Amharic, to reconnect with my parents as well.
Yeah, so. Beautiful. And Mez, I reckon not so much what your relationship to the culture, but more how have you found being with someone who is Habesha, who has come from a bit more of a continuous background in that, has helped you or maybe hindered you in being in your own journey to recapture your Ethiopian culture?
Yeah. So I went to a period of my life where I was like, I want to be with Ethiopian, and then I was like, I don't want to be with Ethiopian, and then I'm like, I'm definitely not going to be with Ethiopian. So it's been interesting to even go through that process of like, okay, who am I going to find, like someone that actually understands both worlds really well, someone that's not from solely Ethiopian or not. So for me, like Yosef, like you're saying, like, yes, he's not as connected with the culture growing up, and partly, but he grew up around it, so he have an understanding of it. And the beautiful part of it is, like, many of his siblings, they're really connected. I love it because there's elements of, like, some needs that I have that his family is able to, like, meet. That, like, now it's like I said, really speaking the language and practicing, even though, like, I'm not really perfect, and being at their home, and just like the smells and that to me, because I like most of my teenage, like early life has been in Ethiopia, so even though that I don't live it every day, there's still part of it that I want to connect, and I feel such a privilege that Yosef and his family actually provide that space for me, where beautiful. I can, eat, I can, like, just the food and the environment, some of the culture, because a lot of, I think they stay within the community, they know the country, they speak the language, and just those important things, and having that has been just so amazing. So initially I didn't expect it, but he understands both sides of it. But also, like, I'm so privileged that his family offers, like, that cultural connection for me here in Australia, and I love that.
Yeah, and that's beautiful. Yosef, do you think that being with Mez has made you more inclined to get back into your Ethiopian culture?
100%. Like, I remember when I brought her home, my mum just went and gave her a massive kiss, and I knew what she was thinking was, it's an answer to prayer. My son's finally going to come back into the community, learn the language, and not forget his culture, because that's what that was one of the fears. Just like I was going to completely lose it. But like I've reinvigorated to learn the culture, learn language in particular. The language is a big thing I got to learn, because I grew up speaking Tigrinya.
And you still do speak.
And I still speak Tigrinya here and there. Not clean, but somewhat decent.
Yeah. I mean, better than most Australians, so it's great.
Yeah, to step up from Australians. But 100%. I want to relearn everything and understand it, especially obviously when kids come. I can't just be the Dad, where's this? I don't know. Go talk to
mum or anyone else.
Or like my parents and my sisters, go and hang out with them. It's been like a really good conversation starter, I think I would say, because for you, like, you were more, I guess sometimes when you're around it and you grow up on it, you can take it for granted. But then, like, journeying with me, you probably got to see, like, losing it and then, like, the fight to get it back. Maybe I could be wrong.
No, I was reinvigorated because I saw how hard she was working for it, whilst I had it easy. And I always had, like, I'd jump into community events and jump out when I went to, but the community always took me in open hands, like, but I just didn't think it was anything big. And then she came into the picture, and it's like, wow, you're actually taking it for granted. Like, the community's incredible. They just take you in.
Yeah.
But I've always had it. Like, what's usually common is not.
Yeah, the privilege of being kept or being the kept one.
Yeah,
and we're not that. Yeah. So, you don't know what you don't know.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's amazing. And I think it's really beautiful because I've had the privilege of going to a couple of like Harbour Shore events where you two have been there, and just seeing how you interact with the community and how the community interact with you guys. It goes to show that there is a lot of welcome and a lot of wanting for a lot of us adoptees to come back. So, it's great. We're going to get into a little bit more about your relationship. But before we do, we've got to understand how you met and where you started and where you are now.
I'm going to ask you to share this, babe, because I go on a tantrum and I forget what.
They also have slightly differing opinions on how it happened.
That's true.
Well, I'm quite short and sharp.
Yeah.
I don't add a lot of pizzazz or colour and everything. It's just like, this
okay, well, we'll do that one first. Give us the highlights, the dot points. Yeah.
Keep everyone on track.
No, we're always around each other because we had similar friends and stuff like that. So I was around her, but I didn't really see her until like, I guess, a handful of years ago. Like, I just saw her, I'm like, this chick's actually pretty cool. And then I think, last year or 2 years ago, that I actually pursued her, saying that this is the girl I want to be with. Told her I liked her straight away, and then said, hey, let's get to know each other. And then I said 6 months' time, I read just, hey, do you want to be in a relationship? She wanted more time. And then the end of the year came, and I'm like, hey, is it time now? Like, we've gone a whole year, and I've been pursuing you, like, come on. She's like, no, I need more time. And then January came, and I pulled the plug. I think January last year? January last year, and I pulled the plug, and it's like, I can't. It's not good for both of us to keep doing this. Like, I want this, and obviously you're not ready. There's no point in me keeping pushing you. At the end of the day, like, let's just end it. Well, it was a great journey, and I learned a lot. She learned a lot. I hope she learned a lot. But I gained a lot. But for me, it was more like I can't keep being in this limbo. So we both parted ways, and 3 months later, I think she went to Ethiopia. She came back, wanted to catch up. Didn't know for what reason. But 7 hours later, we're in a relationship, and then December we're engaged.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the dot points.
That's the dot points.
Yeah.
Mez, what do you think are your dot points? I don't want your whole tangent, but what do you think are your dot points?
Yeah, so 5 or 6 years that we've been around each other's circles. And I think I remember we connected. We used to have a lot of banters and things like that. But it was like I was completely different and he was doing his thing. So the timing really wasn't right. But a couple of years ago, I came out of a relationship and I just wanted time. Didn't want to commit to anything or anyone. And I was in this wrestle between knowing that he's such a great guy, but I'm just not ready to fully give it all again. But at the same time, I really just enjoyed his company. So we did hikes. It was platonic, a whole year we'd talk.
Yeah.
And it was just I just got to know him like that. And so it took a whole year. It came time, and he's just I'm still waiting. Because, took a few. You pursued me earlier as well, actually. So he was just coming in, and he was just I'm ready. And I'm like, I'm not ready. I don't want to push myself. And I was learning boundaries and going to therapy. So I was just I need to give it time. And then to the end, I just I've so much time. It's been a year. Still don't feel like I'm ready. But then I said to myself, I'm like, if it's meant to be, we'll come back.
Yeah.
And then when I went back last year to Ethiopia, it's I always found a trip to Ethiopia recentering.
Yeah.
And that's when it's I started to, I was just oh, I miss him. Oh, he's a great guy. Oh, I'm kind of what's going on? And even then I was I want to catch up and see what's happening. I'm in a different state of mind. I feel rested, ready. And then, when we caught up that day, I was it's really hard to be vulnerable. I didn't realize how hard it was really being really vulnerable and putting your heart out. So I was just I kind of like you. That's how I started the conversation. And he's like,
Always
what?
Yeah.
And then we just caught up, talked about everything, and it was just like, yeah, let's give it a go and see. But just for me, it's just seeing it over the years, how much is really invested. And it got back to kind of like the books that he would, even resources about adoption that he used to find, and just the great like friendship, the foundation was what gave me confidence to come back and be like, let me, he's probably, done with me because it's been so many times, but
I know, he was keen.
Yeah, so I was like, it was a bit of a risk that day, but it's been amazing.
Yeah.
It's the best thing.
Yeah, amazing. And I guess there's an element of obviously your personal healing journey. And I know from our conversations, our private conversations, that there are elements of you guys going back and forth that has a lot to do with you, Mez, not really paying attention to maybe some of your own behaviours and some of your own coping mechanisms.
Yeah.
And I guess if you're comfortable in sharing, what do you think made you really realise that they were the things that were your barriers?
The barriers, yeah. So I think one of the biggest motivator for me to like look at it really deeply and take ownership was just, I don't want to repeat the patterns, because what I realized over the years is like the same personalities but like different bodies. Like,
yeah.
So I started to see the patterns, and it was like, I can't believe I'm doing this over and over, and something is wrong. And the common denominator was me, and how I was choosing, and how I was seeing life and people and relationships, and just the values were out of whack. So that was a great motivator. I don't want to be in that situation again where I picked similar personalities.
Yeah, totally.
So I really just spent time going to therapy, coaching, both sometimes. Yeah. Of looking at, okay, oh wow, there's codependency. Oh wow, there is, people-pleasing side. Yeah. Oh wow, I'm not very good at actually sharing what I need. It's like I'm meeting people's needs, and then there's burnout. So I started to explore the impacts of my early life experiences, and how much of that was making the decision for me without even being aware of it. Yeah. And the outcome wasn't great, and I wasn't happy. So just started to peel it one by one. Yeah. But definitely, there was that being an older, independent, I have no needs, but then I found out later I have needs, but then I was like,
really?
Oh,
Sorry.
I know.
Breaking news, everyone. Meseret has needs.
I was shocked, and it was just like, because I put independent persona, I was just like, this is a weird thing I have to learn. And it was just like, it was hard work. I'm not going to lie. They were such a hard work, but I also knew if I wanted to build a future and have children and all that stuff, that I needed to look at myself honestly, and do what I can to work towards it if I want a content and a life that I wanted. So that was kind of roughly what was the motivated, the big barriers were just for me to be able to be honestly showing up. And one of the things that Joseph was early days, what I've said no to him is, honestly, I've told you this, but you were so functional for me. Like, it was like he was honest, and what you see is what you get. And he wasn't falling for any of the copy mechanisms as adoptees pop in, rejecting, saying something that to push him away. Like, none of it was working, and it was becoming annoying, and he would want to give me space, and I didn't know what to do with him. Yeah. I was like, this is different. Yeah. And then later I was like, I gotta catch up. Yeah. So that's been my journey. Yeah. And I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah, I'm glad you did it too. So you guys look good together. Yeah. I remember you saying that Yusuf had already started to look at adoption just from your friendships.
Yes.
Yusuf, what was the beginning process of you looking at that, and what are some of the things that you learnt just in terms of making your friendship good from your research?
Yeah, I think the thing that led me to is that I didn't understand. I was doing certain things, which I thought normal, but she was reacting in a way that I've never like seen. I was just it just started to confuse me. I'm like, and then I had to self-reflect. What am I doing that's like causing this behavior? Like I was just mind boggled. I'm just like, something's happening here. So I'm like, all right, why don't you just go ask her? So I just said, look, help me understand you. Like, yeah. I'm missing something. Like, help me understand you. What do I need to do to make sure that particular behaviors that I'm doing aren't setting you off? Like, I'm doing something and I'm not doing it intentionally.
Yeah.
So help me understand you. Then she started giving me some material to look into, and then I started on the journey of, because I came in, because I think for me it was more of a hit to the face because of my preconceived notions of what adoption was. So the hunger to learn came from the premise I had, which was that I only looked at adoption for what the kids gained, not what they lost.
Yeah.
So,
and that is the narrative. That's the societal narrative. So you're not, I don't think people realize how strong that narrative is pushed out, and it's a win-win situation.
Yeah.
Considerably.
So for me, it was more like, because I just felt I was so wrong, and to a point where I apologized to her because that premise that I came from was absolutely incorrect, and my behaviors led her to the behaviors that was occurring. So then I started looking into it by myself, like looking into Primal Wound and reading the book, and then I'm like, that's pretty heavy. And then I started looking into like a lady called Lara Leon out of the UK. She's an adoptee.
You're a coach, your relationship.
Yeah, I just call her my adoption coach because she's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
Because she breaks it down in a manner that's like, okay, this is, if you want to be in a relationship with an adoptee, this is what you don't do, and this is what we recommend you do. Yeah. So stuff like, make sure you reassure, make sure you don't gaslight, make sure you're patient.
Yeah.
Make sure you don't push them away from actually giving them affection. Encourage them to set boundaries. Encourage them to basically be their authentic self.
Yeah.
Make sure you take ownership of your disagreements and don't make flippant promises. Like, if you're going to say something, do it. So for me, it's just like, okay, what does that behavior look like? Because patience for me, I was not a very patient individual. Like, she says I'm patient now, but I wasn't patient. So that for me was like learning that if we get into any disagreement of any sort, the number one, I own up to it. Number two, to just be quiet about it, just like be in the space and just hold the space.
Yeah.
And then readdress if any triggers took place. Like, if hypothetically let's get into disagreement and she says something that's affecting me, or we get into a disagreement, I'll most likely just say, hey, yeah, it was my fault, because I know she's reflective. So if it's not my fault, then she'll come at it. But there's no point in me having that discussion there because of what could break in that situation. Because safety might be absolutely shattered, and then how long is it going to take me to rebuild that? So it's like, just bite the bullet, readdress it when things are settled, and then we usually have a laugh about it. But it does get addressed. It doesn't. I'm not a big fan of just putting stuff under the rug.
And I think that's also potentially bad for adoptees. One of the things that we grow up with is things said or things happening, and then when we go back to be like, did that thing really happen, or was that thing really said? And our adoptive parents could potentially just dismiss it. The institutions dismiss it. So I think, absolutely going back and readdressing it is important within the whole process.
I think, like, because they're readdressing what you probably realize, and I've caught that myself a few times, is what he's doing in that time is to make sure I don't get dysregulated anymore. So that's like really good, because when I'm like regulated, then when we have that conversation, it's usually like, like when it's serious, we're like, it's serious. But if it's like, or if sometimes I literally end up apologizing, it's just like, I've been so dysregulated. I was literally I don't even remember sometimes. I'm like, I don't even know what triggered me. And then it's like, but I make sure that I acknowledge the impact. If there's anything else that like what I said or the reaction, then it's a conversation to follow. And that's one of the amazing things that I love about him, is like he he doesn't let me get away with things because I can talk, being a leader and all that. But like he actually accountability and reflectivity, like he reflects on things, he follows up on things, and he's literally has no problem being straight up and having that conversation. But the way he does it, I think was the biggest thing. Learning points for you.
That's what I had to learn.
Yeah.
It's like you can say anything as long as safety is at the core of what you're saying, and connection is at the core of what you're saying, and then how it's delivered. Because at the end of the day, the way I would approach it is, I'm having this conversation for the benefit of the relationship. Then I'm very mindful of what words I'm using. It's just like, I'm having this conversation, I'm bringing this up because if this keeps happening, this is what's going to happen to our relationship. But I'll start like shifting away because of the impact it's having. So I love you too much not to have this conversation. So let's have it, and then our relationship can become stronger.
Yeah. I think it's really beautiful that you started that journey when you guys were friends.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously you had intentions, but it started and it continued while your friendship was happening. And so I think that's really great, because I think we're talking about a romantic relationship today.
Yeah.
But a lot of the same problems that we find within a romantic relationship and the adoptee experience can actually happen in friendships. And
Absolutely.
I think friends are less likely to go to the effort of finding out this information because they're not having to sit with you so closely. So it's great that you did that then. In your relationship, and still does. That's also really important, that the learning is continual, because for Mez, she will always be adopted. So, that's the process. In your relationship, I guess, elements of abandonment, elements of fear of rejection and things like that, how have they come up? How regular were they when you started? How regular are they now? Mez, do you want to start with this?
Yeah, to give you an idea, like when we're getting to know each other, like really early on, like as friends, what I would do is, obviously I don't get too close to him. So like I was playing that dancing game where I'm like close but not close enough, like, and that was our starting points of like those. They will show up and then I would like literally hide away for a little bit, and then it would like take me a while to come out and be like, hey, I'm here, or be like, well, if I get too close to him then he's gonna leave me again. So I was running out of that narrative, which is why I was playing that dancing game. So probably when we have a disagreement, I would say, like, that's why it's really important how he handles it, because if I test him during that time, which I do unconsciously, I was like, oh, he's gonna leave, or he's gonna bang the car, or he's gonna be mad at me, or whatever, like those things that come up. When he doesn't really respond like that, it forced me to actually change narrative. And that's what started to happen at the start. Usually I ask for reassurance. By the way, reassurance, like having needs, that was something I had to literally be okay with. It's like, oh, like, are you okay? Are you here? Generally, it's a text message, consistent communication. If he goes quiet, it's like, oh, have I done something? That's probably how they show up. But he's done enough, especially during the friendship period, which I do refer to, for me to kind of change those narratives now. But during that time also I felt like, okay, when is he going to leave? I was waiting for him to leave. I was waiting to see how much he can handle of my BS.
Did you find that when he very rightfully put in the boundary to leave and say, hey, this isn't working for me, it's not healthy for me, were you in a place that said, I fucking knew it? Or were you in a place that was like, oh, shit? Like, how did that... I
think because, like, the 6 months, I was a little bit, he was just like, let's reevaluate in a little bit. But because during that time, he was doing so much, like, and it was like, by the time it was a year, and I was like, fair enough. If I was in his spot,
Yeah.
And I'm literally that indecisive for the whole time.
Yeah.
And time is essential. It was fair enough. But that was because I was like in therapy talking about it, dealing with it, that I had that understanding.
Yeah.
On top of that, the trust is built so much.
Yeah.
It was like, but the reason that I said no to him at that time is not because like he didn't want to leave, actually. I knew that. But it was more like I chose myself.
Yeah.
In that time, and I knew that there was a cost to it.
Yeah.
And that was fair. And he's done, like, even before like that year, like we've been friends, he's been around. So I think like his character and consistency and all of that kind of showed me who he was.
Yeah. So
and
it
that's
didn't
why
become
I came
just
back.
a self-fulfilling prophecy.
It wasn't, because
you'd done work.
Yeah. The first 6 months, I think that narrative would have been there. The first 6 months, I would say, I would have been like, nah, he didn't. But before that, he's shown so many things that I'm like,
yeah. And it is this thing of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Like, because
absolutely.
You were behaving in a way that is not necessarily inducive to someone wanting to stay.
Yeah.
And then someone takes the ownership of their own feelings and their own boundaries and then leaves. And then if you've still got that narrative, which luckily for you didn't, but if you do still have that narrative, you're very quick to be like,
I actually respected him.
I knew it. It just checks out.
I respected him for that decision.
Yeah.
Because again, it showed me that he wasn't someone I can walk all over.
Yeah.
And that he actually valued himself.
Yeah.
So it was like, he was kind of what he's saying, what he was doing was matching up, which for me, integrity was a really big part of it. It hurt like crazy. And there's still, I think, part of me that was like, are you still there?
You get messages
like,
here and there.
Where you at?
Like,
When I catch up, when I come back. And then, but like him doing that, it kind of, I respected him for it, because at some point, like, someone has to take ownership to your own BS.
Yeah.
And look at it for what it is. And again, like, one of the things that I do feel like we've got is both of us are quite reflective. And that complements so well. That complements works for us. So yes, in some ways it happens with friendship more regularly, I would say, but compared to like on the relationship I've been to and the friendship, he's done so much. Like, even the book that you got me, The Primal Wound, that book, I didn't know about it. He bought it for me.
You didn't know about it?
I didn't know. I was just starting to, like, I knew podcasts and things like that, but there wasn't like as many resources. Even he was just flicking me things, and I'm like, I feel like I should know this.
Yeah.
And it's just like, he just showed with action. And that's what I was so said to you. I was like, I don't want to hear the words anymore. I want to see action. Yeah. But your actions anyway, regardless. So, it's really hard to look back and go, I can't believe that's how we started and here we are. But at the same time, it's crazy to see how, like, I was hustling, like, that year of having the time aside and working and reflecting and doing that. Yeah. And then also having someone that's, like, walking alongside me. Yeah. And kind of, like, it's hard for me to reflect back and go, oh, like, what exact time was I acting like this? Yeah. But I know it wasn't easy, though.
Yeah. All right. Yusuf, your experience of this, of that push and pull, of that fear of abandonment, the behaviours that gave you reason to be like, I can't continue doing it. What was your experience of that?
I think it was a push and pull. It was just, so for me, it's just like, okay, I'm not understanding what's going on. Then I started reading those books, and then I'm like, okay, then it is starting to make sense. Doesn't mean it's easy. No. But there was a lot of grace around why she was doing what she was doing. But for me, it's like, it's one thing for someone to tell you security is a big thing and connection is a big thing. I think when we were starting to be friendships, I was still learning those words and what they actually mean in behavior. So security for me is different to security for her. Yeah. Like, security for her is like, if we get in a conversation and it gets heated and we're in the conversation in the car, if I get out of the car and I accidentally hit the door hard, security is breached. And so for me, it's just like those little things is what I kind of had to pay attention.
And yelling and tones was another one.
And should call me out. So that sometimes I get passionate, my tone goes high, but it's like it changes real quick. Yeah. And then she gets a bit of a shock. At the start, I'm like, oh, what's going on? Is my vocal variety off these days? Like, but it's more of those sharp changes of tones were different.
Yeah, because the hypersensitivity
Yeah.
of wanting to make sure that you're aware of your environment enough that you can cater to the people around you so that they are always in a good enough mood.
Yeah.
Do you feel, Yusuf, that some of her behaviours were behaviours that you've ever done? Were any of her triggers that you've ever had? Like, obviously you've been kept.
Yeah.
And you've had like a very different experience, but were you able to come to any of some of her behaviours and be like, oh, not only do I have empathy because I've read these books, but I have empathy because I've experienced fear?
Yeah, there's some behaviours, like, for me, I'm quite, like, in the sense, if someone disowns me, they do something, I'll disassociate real quick, like, because it's like, I can make new friends. But my friendship was at a distance, like, you're not going to get to know me and that's how far you're going to get to know me.
Yeah.
But when I started to understand her, certain behaviours she would do, I'm like, okay, I can understand where that's coming because that's something I would do.
Yeah.
But then obviously there's extremes to what I don't understand. Like, the reason why I kept passing her the books and stuff, I can read the book, but I don't want to be a person that's not an adoptee but thinks they understand adoption, because I'm a walking library of adoption material.
Yeah.
So I send it to her. It's like, okay, what does this mean?
Yeah.
Like the first term that I was coming across is like people that were in the fog, or like push and pull, like abandonment triggers and attachments and what it looks like with caregivers and caretakers, and like I'm like, okay, what does this mean to you, and can you help me understand what that means in an adoptions perspective? Because yes, I'm getting it from a book that an adoptee's reading it, but I'm interpreting it from my lens.
Yeah.
So it's going to be completely different to what I pick out of it.
And those conversations, like, that's one of the things that we, like, in our relationship, we talk about the most randomest thing ever.
Yeah.
And those conversations was part of it. That's why I kind of, for me, it gave me confidence, is I wasn't like chucking at him and like, read this to understand me, read this. You need to grow in these areas. Like, I think none of us actually, we were just doing our own growth.
Yeah.
And he was like reading the books and coming back and be like, oh, can you explain that? Do you feel like you experienced this? And how does it show up? So those conversations are naturally happening whenever we were on the phone or like whenever I was at an event. So it was like you're kind of dissecting it and we're talking about it as a concept, but also like how it showed up.
Yeah.
And even like, you know, I remember, for example, you were like playing sports and you kind of have a little bit of an experience with like, you know, Australian families, and that's how you grow up. You're pretty much with your friends, and you know, early, and that he was able to understand like family dynamics of like culture and what it is like to, you know, hang out with a family that perhaps doesn't look like you, you know, or coming from Tassie and like coming from a small, like, so there was a commonality in that sense.
Yeah, totally.
And that kind of helped with shared experience and like talking about it.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm.
All right. What is your attachment style? So you've just touched on it, Yusuf, that was one of the things that you've read about. Having read about it, what did you think was your attachment style in your life, in your relationships?
See, I'm going to be completely transparent. So I looked at secure attachment and I'm like, man, I'm so that attachment.
Fuck you. I'm joking.
That's 100%
no, it's lovely.
me.
I am so happy for you.
Absolutely. That's definitely my attachment.
Yeah.
And then I kind of told her, and then she kind of like...
Was that a trigger?
It's just like...
Like, she didn't say... Like,
I didn't say anything.
She didn't say anything, but the calmness and like the no response... She was the kind of game like, okay, let's look at it. Because I was the first one I looked at. I didn't know.
Oh, like, you didn't keep reading?
Yeah, what's the point? Like, I got my attachment. What do I need to really look at the other ones?
Okay, before you tell me what is your attachment style, what about secure attachment did you feel really resonated with you?
I think the owning up to stuff. Just like the ability to just, this is your mistake, owning up to it, and then taking responsibility, and then changing your behavior. And go and getting resources to help you in that.
Feeling comfortable to change your behaviour.
Yeah, and I was fine with
accordingly.
That. Yeah. And the other, like one side of the secure attachment I liked, which was that they're okay to be by themselves. Like, love that. I don't need people.
Yeah.
But secure attachment, they're also good in regards to emotional connection, with other people and with their partner. I'm like, well, I don't.
So 2 out of 3, it's not quite.
This emotional connection, being vulnerable, nonsense. Like, why do people need to talk about their feelings? Just get on with it.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, maybe not. Then I started to look into more, and then I'm like, all right, I think avoidant kind of.
And a friend gave you a book on it.
Yeah, so I got given a book, and then I read the book, and then there was a passage in the avoidant attachment that like had me word for word. I couldn't even argue with it. And I'm good at making up nonsense, but I could not. Like, there was no way around it.
It just read you.
Yeah, it just like read me like a book. Like it was just like, and I'm like, yeah, definitely, that's definitely got me.
Yeah.
So, because one of the things that an avoidant attachment does is we're very good. We have high self-esteem for ourselves, not for other people.
Yeah.
But we avoid connection like the plague. Like we have no need for emotional connection. Self-reliant, self-resilient, independent. I'm good.
Yeah.
But we're not good when it comes to like, obviously as humans, and I want to be able to connect, but I was just struggling for it, especially emotional connection. Like I don't want somebody to see that side and then run away. Yeah. So I'm like, you're the problem. I'll keep doing me, and that's safe for me. Like, because then if I you don't need to see, if you get too close, then I might be completely open, and then you might turn away.
And then you've opened yourself. And
I've opened. I'm like, oh, now you know something about me that was like quite intimate, and you're running away from it. So what's your problem? So I didn't want that rejection. So it's just easier to have that wall up and just live life as independent and self-reliant.
Yeah.
And then how did you work it through?
Obviously I went to therapy.
Always the questioner.
Naturally.
I did go to therapy because there was a couple of things I needed to address, and I was outside my depth. Like I had a lot of things that I could figure out myself. But then there's this thing that's just like I need a different perspective, and let's go see an expert in this. So I went and saw this individual, and they were giving me some information. I'm like, oh, cool, that makes sense. But my logical brain kicked in. They're like, you need to stop logically trying to make sense of this. Like,
because humans aren't logical.
Yeah, it's emotions, Joseph. They're like, because I was coined as the person that's an emotional robot, very good at tasks, horrible connection.
Yeah.
So I found a psych. She's a beautiful young girl, understands me, very experienced, knew what she was doing. And she started to peel the layers. But it's one thing for them to like. It was only an hour session. There's only so much you can do. Yeah. So then I started to do more deep dive, and then I just didn't understand emotions it was just like, I like control, which is one of avoidance love control, emotions you can't control.
Yeah.
But you also have to feel, and I was deflecting, and I was avoiding, and I was suppressing. Yeah. So then I came across a guy called Mark Brackett, and he started giving me like principles to understand emotions, like ruler was an acronym that I still use every day when our emotions come up. It's just like recognize what it is, understand it, label it, which is very hard because labeling means you need to have an array of words to describe your emotion.
And you've got to understand it well enough to be able to label it.
Absolutely. There's a big difference in anger and frustration. I only knew anger and envy, anger and jealousy. There's tons. So my emotional vocabulary was quite low. Yeah. So I needed to get more, and I started to read a lot more books. I'm still got a lot of work I'm still doing a lot, and I still need to do a lot. But it has been, the journey's been good, the journey's been hard, but I'm still enjoying the process.
And how long ago did you read that paragraph? 2
years. No, it was 2 years ago. 2 years ago. Yeah.
Year and a half.
Year and a half. I think when I was pursuing her. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
of course you were.
Yeah.
For something new. No. Do you think? Have you read it since?
Yeah.
And does it still hold to the same degree?
Not to the same degree, no.
Yeah. Amazing.
That's how we know.
Yeah.
Because that was just a punch to the gut, and it's just like, I operated with like high ego, which came across as confident and charismatic to a lot of people. low, like insecure as hell. My security level was low, but my ego made up for me being so confident, charismatic. So people would like, oh, this guy's top notch. Like he can do whatever he wants. Look at him. He ain't got no. But then deep down, it's just like, man, I'm just like, it's like I'm going everywhere. I just need to like breathe and I need to settle. Like I'm just running everywhere inside. So that was the work I needed to do.
Yeah. All right, Mez, what was your attachment styles?
I was umming and ahhing. I initially thought I was anxious, but there's a new one. So with anxious attachment, there is anxious, disorganized, which is a combination of avoidant and anxious.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's anxious. There's the secure.
Yeah.
So
what the fuck is secure? If you are secure, we're really happy for you.
I was like, come on, there's someone out there. Actually, there's like 50% secure. Yeah, it's something crazy like that. But it's good because they keep us centered. So I'm disorganized, which is a combination of both. Anxious and avoidant. Yeah. So they show up differently. I think avoidant in a sense where, early stages I've operated like relationships are dangerous, which it really explains, love equals pain, you lose people, all
the
that
need for
narrative.
control.
Yeah, the need for control, like every decision was made out for you when you're younger, so that was that. And then the anxious was more like, I don't know, it was like more you wanted people to be okay with you, and you're like people pleasing tendencies, and you're constantly checking up on people and make sure you're like, scared to make mistakes and all of that.
Especially like it might have taken you longer to let someone in, but once you've let someone in, you go like 110% into it. So it's that thing of like when you move from that disorganized into the anxious, it can be quite the swing. It was so confusing. Like when I reflect back, I'm like, they're so like the opposite. That you're like, come hang out with me, love me, be with me, and then there's like the other side of it. You're like, I don't want connection. I don't want you to hurt me. And it's like, my God, no wonder I was like so confusing. And I'm also confused because I don't even know what my needs are. And so it was like,
I was confused as well. It's okay.
We were all confused.
So I would say, I think, for mine is disorganized, working into over what time to secure. I've seen improvement.
You have, massive improvement.
I'm like,
massive improvement.
I'm just like, yay, all this hard work. Which is really nice. It still shows up, but the intensity is a little bit lower.
Because they're two opposites, because anxious is more, they deeply crave emotional connection. Whereas avoidant is like, they avoid emotional connection. So disorganized is like high highs and low lows. So sometimes confusing, but that's just why I just do a waiting out period and just be still and just hold her hand and be quiet. And then usually that settles out pretty well.
And then I'm like, this is what I want. This is what I need.
I guess that is a really good thing, to be able to articulate that you didn't know that you had needs, but also to like, how bizarre is that moment when you are trying to figure out your needs, and when you have a partner who's like, I am here to meet those needs, and I'm willing and I'm wanting to meet those needs, but I first need to know them. And you're sitting there being like, well, I don't even fucking know them. So I guess
literally what I was.
How did you start defining your needs?
How did I start? Such a good question. I think at the start, the process of admitting it was huge for me for a starter. Like, I'm like, okay. And then I started to look at, okay, what do I feel good around when things happen? So it was like, it's so weird because you feel like you're in kindergarten. Like you feel like you don't have, like you're like starting out as a new skill. And you're like, I'm an adult. Like I'm like 25 or 26 or whatever I started. And you just feel this weird, like you're behind on these skills. It's like I should have had this developed early on. But it was part of it's trial and error. So there was times where I'm like, okay, I need connection. But then I was like, then I have to ask for it. So that was on its own. It's like, I need to call a friend and I just need you to come and sit and hang out with them.
Yeah.
But I think switching from I have needs, I don't have needs.
Yeah.
And then it's like, and then what are they? Which is, let's say, connection at points. And then going and asking for it.
Yeah.
Sometimes it was like too much,
Yeah.
but I just started small ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, just asking friends to come over and not feel like it needs to be a grand event or I need to be like hosting at a bed, just chill out and be there, or something has happened. It's like, I can do it all. And it's like, you offered me, that was another thing. There was like things that he would do, like pick me up.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to get used to that.
Yeah.
Can I? And I was like, no, I can meet you there.
Yeah.
It was like this whole like strange thing. I caught myself and I was like, no, it's just a nice, like, he's aware that you can do that.
Yeah, we live 5 minutes away.
We live 5 minutes away. It's like such a hard thing. But it's like, it was this weird thing where I'm like, okay, then I was like, let me just say yes and see how that feels.
Yeah.
And then now I'm like, you're picking me up?
Yeah.
When are you coming? Like,
because you don't want to be a burden. You don't want to you don't want to make it any harder than necessary for
100%.
someone to like you or
you just
want
to be
near you.
invisible.
Yeah.
Like, you just want to like be minimal. Like, you don't want to be too much effort. Like, that's the narrative. And I've lived it for a long time. It's like, you know, when we asked previously, they're like, oh my God, you're so complicated. You're too needy, like someone that's unable to meet your needs, they label you as that. And because of that, you take that on and go, I don't want to have those feelings of being told I'm needy and that I can't do things. Then you go into this, you know. So for sure, I think I just started to practice minimizing friendships and actually going, okay, who are these friends that actually meet my needs and who I connect with, or it's just party and noise, you know. And then it started to kind of but what I wanted to say is, when you're thinking about your needs, it's really important to talk about values as well. What you value the most. But I'm very connection based anyway, so like, there's some people that are my favorite. They want to hang out with me and go to an Ethiopian food, I'm happy as Larry. So but it's a try and error. That's how I started with, I'll try a little bit and then go, okay, yep, that was received well. Oh, yep, that felt good. Let me ask at a bigger scale. Or let me ask that again.
And just in your statement there, that was received well. So even in your process of finding your needs, you were still
100%
taking it off the litmus test paper of how is everything around me working? How is everyone else feeling?
Yeah, that's one of the hardest thing I would say for, especially in adoptee experience and early trauma. It's like, we're so hyper vigilant. It's crazy. Like, you're so aware of your surroundings, what everyone is feeling. It's like you're aware at all times. It's very hard to switch it off, and I'm still working at that. Where it's like to just not be considering everyone else's first, because it's just a second nature. So it's going to be years of practice for sure. But or like, I catch myself sometimes. I'm like, okay, I can't just think of myself right now. Like, I can't just fool myself. It's like, why is that? Like, but hypervigilance is one of the hardest thing I personally struggle with.
Totally.
So.
Yusuf, have you always been comfortable with expressing your needs? Is this something you're also learning?
No, I'm also learning in that sense, because I don't really, the idea of expressing needs is a foreign concept. Didn't even think why would I express needs? This is, I was quite like by the radar. It's like, if you don't rock up, I'm out. If you don't follow through what you're gonna do, then it's like a light goes off in my head. You do that 3 times, you're done. I was, that's just how.
So your boundaries were really strong.
Really
strong.
Because I would communicate that with people. So then, I didn't used to. So what used to happen is, I'd have in my brain, and if you rock up late, like 15 minutes, I'm out. And that for me, it's just like, you're gone, you disappeared in my world. But then a handful of years later, it's just like, what I'm going to give people is the permission to make the choice for themselves. So somebody does something, if they rock up like, I don't know, half an hour late, I will 100% have the conversation with you. And we're going to, because before I used to be way too brutal, where it's just like, hey, Joseph, like, I can't, because I'm like, why don't you to rock up? So I had to help my mum. It's just like, well, your mum wasn't part of the schedule.
Yeah.
It was that brutal.
Yeah.
Like, it was just like, it was inhumane. Like, it's just like, you're not, like, as I said, emotionless robot.
Yeah.
But now it's more of, if someone keeps doing it, and I'm like, because for me, integrity is a big thing for me. Like, I'm just going to take you at your word. I shouldn't need, if you don't do it, I will have the conversation with you, saying, hey, this is what's happening. You keep doing this. I'm going to start shifting away. This is what's going to keep happening. I'm just bringing that to your attention, and making you make the decision. So if it happens again, I bring it up one more time. Like, this is what we discussed. Now you've done it again. If it keeps happening, I'm like, cool, you've made your decision.
Yeah.
I'm just not you. I'm not the friend for you.
He's okay with that decision. That's one of the things, his boundaries. He set them up. Like, I think I would say you are learning at the moment to give more time and more flexibility in how that happens. And consideration
for
that
the things that happen in life that some people can't, determine.
Like, I'm better now in the sense I still have those conversations with people, but it's more of sometimes I'm just not the friend for you. Like, and I have to be okay with that.
You'll have that
like,
conversation.
I'm just
directly.
So like, I'll have them talk because I'm like, it's out of respect.
Yeah.
Just like there's people that better serve you. Than me, because at the end of the day, this is what I value. And you keep breaking it, and I'm having this conversation with you, and it's not me saying you're a bad person or anything. It's just these are the values I hold. There's other people that will suit the values you have way better than me. And it's an injustice for me to trying to force you to do something that's it's not natural to you and you don't want to do it. There's the other people that are like blasé. If you rock up an hour late, don't care, all good. Be with them. Like, go find those guys. It's like, and if you ever want to come back around, like, the door's always open. Like, come give me a chat. Because some people do come around. It's like, oh, I understand. But what I have learned is they're very respectful of the conversation. Because I hate people that ghost. I just cannot fathom the idea of people just disappearing without having the conversation. Have the conversation. Give people, out of respect to the friendship. Give people permission to understand what you're going through and allow them the room to make that decision, because you never know, they might just change it. And half the time they're not even aware that's how you're feeling. So give people the choice to make the decision for themselves.
So that's a really great segue to boundaries. Within your relationship, how have you guys found creating boundaries? How have you found holding firm to the boundaries? And what sort of definitions do you give to boundaries versus rules?
I think boundaries, we see them obviously as a guideline. I would say compare it to rules. Like, there's certain boundaries that are like firm that will not be crossed. I remember, I think, when we had that 7-hour catch up before we decided to go into a relationship, I had, 5 or 6?
Yeah,
because I was at that point where I was like, I need to lay them out early. So there were certain things that I've never done that before, where I laid down like 5 or 6. These, if you're gonna give this a go, just letting you know these are non-negotiable for me, and I want you to know that. Open your eyes before you say yes. So that was like early main ones were established and kind of communicated that early on. The other ones, I personally like struggle, especially with like time commitments, I would say, and like kind of catch ups, and that's my biggest thing. But when I find that he helps me like hold. So for example, it's like I need to do work and be like, I just want to hang out with people, or I want to hang out with you, and it's like, wait, you said you were gonna do this. So like he kind of holds me accountable. Which helps me. I'm learning.
Learning that bit.
Oh my goodness. It's so hard. It's like, I don't like, if I set this up, but then I'm also learning, I'm like, if you set boundaries and somebody doesn't respond, kind of shows you like what kind of people that are want the best for you. So I've started to see people's response into the boundaries, because for a long time they haven't really, it's like, Mercy, you can do whatever and however and whenever. So when you set that up, you kind of start to see in your circles and friends and family like who actually respects it, and that's a good line. And then it's like going through that abandonment thing and then balancing. But it's a skill I'm still practicing. But you support me a lot, and I feel like you're great at it, personally.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I think at the start of our relationship, I was quite like she wanted variety and flexibility, and because of my routine structure, it came across as me being controlling, and therefore I think that's why there was a lot of the reasons why there was hesitancy, because she wanted variety, she wanted flexibility, she didn't want to feel like she was controlled. She didn't want to feel like she was losing her voice in the relationship either.
That was a big thing.
So that's one of the reasons why she probably stepped away. But I didn't know that my way of operating was hurting her in some way that's making her freak out, because she wasn't communicating that was a problem. That's just the way I've always operated. Like, if you're gonna say you're gonna rock up, because I used to there was one scenario where I organized an event for after work, but it was gonna be a surprise. This is when I stopped doing surprises. Right here. I organized. The surprise required a third party, so it was going to be an event at some location for her. And I needed to. So I got the other person locked in, and then she didn't know about it, and she came from work and she was tired. She didn't want to do it, and I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? I've already paid money for this. Like,
I've gone to all this effort.
I've gone to all this effort. And then, and she armed and moaned and didn't want to do it, but she did come out, and she enjoyed it. She loved it. Yeah, she absolutely loved it.
Strange.
But then I realized, man, that could have, because then it dawned on me, like, I can't keep doing this, because if I have a third party involved and I'm pushing her because I did something that she wasn't aware of, because she could have already had some plan, like a long day at work, just wanted to chill. I got to be okay. I either got to be okay with getting the no and suffering the cost. Or don't make surprises like that, where it's just like, I will do surprise me by myself for her, and if it changes, it doesn't matter. And that's the way I'd approach. So that was like a massive learning curve, because it just I saw the amount of pain it put on her and the amount of stress it put on her, because she just wanted to stay home after a long day and it was cold.
But she could see that you were getting a little bit upset because you organised something. So then her people pleasing starts to kick in, being like, all right, I'll do it.
So that's too hard. And that's how, like, with the boundaries sometimes as well, right? I'll be moaning around about it. And then it's like, I gotta stop and go. And you'll be asking, it's like, do you want to do it or do you not want to do it? Like, literally. And then it's like, I don't want to be, like, disappointed. Like, I literally think out loud and say that. And he's like, no, you actually need to, like, that's why I say he actually helps me verbalize it. And he's like, you don't have to do this for me. I'm not going to be disappointed. Like, he has to go through that period. And then it's like, what do you want to do? And then I make the decision straight away. But there's a process that I go through with him.
And boundaries make you more reliable too, because
100%.
the people who push your boundaries, the people who break them and go into it, if you allow that to happen, you create some of that same sort of sense of like, how are we being reliable to each other, right? And so for Yusuf, you were too reliable, maybe. You were like, this is the line, this is the cut, whatever, and I don't have the space to maybe listen. And you were like, I only have space to listen. So it's a really beautiful, like, meeting of the two minds, right?
It's important. So I think it's with boundaries, again, I would say, like, it's you have to learn what your limits are sometimes. So there's a testing period as well. But then there's ones that you're so definite that is it. But again, I used to hope that he would guess and know, but that doesn't work.
He's not a mind reader.
I know, I figured that out really early. Actually, people are not mind readers, to my surprise. Somebody discovered.
That's one of the things I think we spoke about. And it was a hard conversation in the sense it's more like, I told her if I was doing something that was hurting you and you don't communicate that with me, you are at fault for the pain you're causing in the relationship.
The furthered cause.
So, because what you're saying is you're going to sacrifice, you're not going to have the courage to have the conversation, and you're willing to sacrifice the relationship. Because that's the way I kind of discussed it with her. It's just like, if I don't have this conversation with you and you don't know your behavior is impacting me, I'm actually being selfish for the benefit. Like, I'm actually being selfish, and the relationship's the thing that suffers.
Yeah.
So it's more of you're doing an actual benefit for the relationship by having the conversation.
Yeah.
If I'm doing a behavior that's actually impacting, which I'm not aware of.
Yeah, because behaviours are changeable.
Yeah.
They're choices and they're changeable.
Yeah, and with boundaries, like, as well, they're actually, like you're saying, Adelaide wanted to pick it up, like, they make you stronger. They're actually, like, people go, okay, she stands for that, or she doesn't stand for that.
Yeah.
Instead of being airy-fairy, and really quickly you get to be like, okay, this is the life, this is where I'm going, these are the people that are coming.
Yeah.
And you eliminate so many things that are not really part of it.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're airy-fairy,
all sorts of things
just
seep through.
Yeah, setting up yourself for danger. So I feel like it clarifies your life, simplifies, it keeps good people out. But it's a really good rule to have.
Yeah.
Do
Do you think that the learning of the boundaries, the learning of your needs is creating safety for yourself so that Yusuf is not necessarily so in charge of the feeling of safety in that relationship for you?
100%. I think, like, for sure, because we talk about this, like, we have to be our own person, like that codependency, because recovering as a codependent person.
I'm a codependent.
Recovering from the as an anonymous. I wonder if there's a group for that. But, like, we talk about that to make sure, like, you said that to me as well, like, we go out and actually do our own things, and we're not, like, we're actually learning to regulate emotions on our own, because that's really important, because it won't be long until, like, you start to relate to the point but at different stages, like early stages, you would get, like, a lot of help. But now I think, like, I'll tell you, I'll come home and be like, oh, this happened, I did this. And and it would be like for him to celebrate.
Yeah.
Vice versa. So I think there's time as it goes. It's like, I'm trusting myself more. I have more capacity. I feel stronger in making those decisions quicker.
Yeah.
Rather than taking time and ahhing. So for sure, it's like a muscle that's growing, and then when it's up and running, you're just like free.
Yeah.
So, and I also, like, with the relationship with you as well, sometimes I say that to you, but it's like, what do I do that triggers you? Like, what areas? And that's the conversation I have to have with him as well, to make sure it's like, we're on the same page. We have check-ins, which we haven't done for a while. But every week or every 2 weeks, we actually have sets of questions that we've created. To check in, to make sure that we're, meeting each other's needs equally. There's things that haven't been spoken that hasn't kept, like, so we try to make sure that we have a few things that are intentional. To make sure it's both ways.
Yeah. And I think it's really easy maybe for some people to look at your relationship and say, oh, well, Mesrat's the one that needs the support. Mesrat's the one that's gone through the most, or she's the drama queen, so what do you expect? But Yusuf, you're a human, and you've gone through your own experiences, and you also need support.
Absolutely.
How do you react in your relationship in order to get the needs and the emotional caregiving and everything that you need? How do you ask for that? How do you make space for that?
I just ask.
Yeah, okay, sure.
Yeah.
Like, I know at the start it was quite hard, because I don't like asking things from people.
Yeah.
And as I said, the idea of asking people for your needs was like, it's very bizarre. Like, it's my responsibility. Well, in the world I ask other people means like I'm like I've got a problem. But I think that one of the reasons that I pursued her so hard is, in the early days, she said something for me. It's like, okay, this is the deciding factor. I want this woman in my life. She called me out on my blind spots, and this is when it's like, I think 2 months into me pursuing her. 2 months. So she called me out, and I'm like, okay, because I said certain things about her behaviors that were like, I'm like, this is quite destructive. And then she went quiet, and I said, okay, you can say anything about, if I gave her like, if you see anything in me, anything, I'll give you free will. I'm not going to react, and I give you my word, I'm not going to react. And she just went on. She's just like, look, you.
Well, let me just get
So,
the list.
It's almost like she didn't even hesitate. Bang, 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 bang. And I'm like, and then I went home. I reflected. I'm like, wow, she was willing to sacrifice the relationship to say this, because the stuff she said wasn't easy to say.
Yeah.
Pretty hard, but they were absolutely true.
Yeah.
So I think I struggle to ask sometimes, and sometimes she kind of weaves me out. But if there's things that have been, if she does certain behaviors that she's triggered me and that's like breached, or like certain things she might be doing that's like limiting my like trust in any way, I'll just tell her, and then she reacts in a calm manner, and she's like, she reflects on things. She reflects, which creates safety for me.
Yeah.
Because she comes back, and then when I tell her about certain behaviors that she's not aware of that might be affecting me in certain ways, she hears me out. And for me, that's the biggest thing, because I'm more of relationships. For me, the way I interact is if connection gets broken and she doesn't want to get close to me.
Yeah, that intimacy.
That's huge. Like my alarm bells goes through the roof, and the nights start to get a bit all over the place. So as long as I'm close to her and she still looks at me the way she looks at me, then then she holds my hand. We're good. Like that's for me always a limits test.
Yeah.
Like is she like, what does she do when I'm close to her?
Yeah.
Does she feel uncomfortable with me around? If it is, I'm like, then I start to like, go into my own shell. It's like something's happened.
Yeah.
And let's discuss.
That's where I have to watch, like, that silent treatment as adoptees do.
I've never done it in my
life. You're like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's this thing, where you're just like mad and you want to like, pay back or whatever. That's where I have to really watch a bit.
Yeah.
Because that impacts.
So you do silent treatment to pay back?
I used to. And occasionally. Well, I call it a tantrum. Total tantrum.
Yeah, I do silent treatment. Not that this interview is about me at all. But I definitely do silent treatment in the sense of like, or maybe I'm the one who's got it wrong, and like I just kind of turn into this little martyr, like a little bit of like I'm just waiting for Aiden or whoever to come up to me and be like, what's wrong? How are you? But instead of me just going up and speaking about it, like I kind of go, and it's not to punish them. I mean, I'm sure Aiden feels punished. But it's to see if they're going to come and check in on me. Like, are you okay? I need that, like, I'm allowed to be upset. I'm allowed to say this thing, but I'm not just going to say it. God forbid I just say it.
I need a little bit of a,
I want you to fight for it. For me.
But it is a common thing. Do you guys have relationships that you look up to in your lives that you are trying not to mirror entirely, but elements that you're trying to mirror?
Absolutely. Yeah, I would say we have 2 or 3 couples that that are older. Actually different stages. There's one that are like late 50s, there's one mid-30s, a little bit older. And then another one. And we always we try to catch up. And we always walk away kind of admiring how they do something, or like going and having a chat about it, because like role models sometimes I don't know, like I look at people, I'm like, I want this kind of relationship, that's what I want to bring a child into. And like having people that are doing that is like a great encouragement. It also tells you like it's possible. So I love it. I literally sit and watch them and I'm like, oh, that was so great, like did you see how they were doing this? Did you see, like but it was more like I don't go and duplicate that, but we still have to have a conversation of what that looks like for us. But it's so important, and I'm thankful for them, like for sure.
100%.
And they encourage us as well when we were going through. They were part of the conversations, especially when we got engaged. They were like
I mean, you guys are engaged.
We
haven't even got
at the end of the podcast.
They're engaged.
We are engaged.
And so you're getting married in next year. Next year. And it's been a process finding a date for you guys because Habisha has so many sacred fasting days. How has the process of organizing a wedding helped you put you guys at odds potentially, because it does do that for some people.
Yeah.
And then I guess, what is the most exciting thing that you're looking forward to, other than obviously getting married of the day? Like, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like, to start the end.
This will be one of the last questions.
I personally, the days was quite hard too. That was one of the challenging bit, because that's where it really shows up. My adopted family, who's, Western mindset, and then your family that's quite traditional as well. And trying to find that middle ground. So that was the hardest part.
Yeah.
And we're cruising now. But yeah, we basically decided, this is what we want. For us, it's like, we'll elope. That was initially the thing.
Don't we all say that? And then we get halfway through the process and we're like, we'll go back to eloping.
And then we're like, committed too hard. But because you don't want to be it's a lot of logistics to it.
Yeah.
But what we realized also is the couple that we look up to, they also told us this is actually not about you as well. It's about families.
Yeah.
Which bottom is no, it's about me. But no, it turns out it's not. Solely. It is, but it's not. So yeah, picked a date. We basically decided we're going to do something that we're quite as close as we can get to what we want at the wedding. And what we're looking for, the wedding date and everything that's included in it. And then compromise and do the cultural one to kind of give your family more of the leash to go ahead and do it their way. Yeah. So we've kind of compromised to meet both, because I do want to do the cultural as well. I'm excited to get dressed up and stuff. Yeah. But the logistic and how it worked and how many people invited and all that was different. So we're going to get married quite Western. There's things that people want to invite and intimate and stuff like that. Yeah. And then a couple of months later, we're going to do the Mels, which is more traditional. And it'll be more like an open invite. So we kind of compromised. Again, that's boundaries was tested. And we had to kind of be on the same page of what we want, and then go out and communicate. Yeah, which has helped.
Yeah, communicating it wasn't that difficult
for you.
Yeah, I think because I go into my family this is what's going to happen, and because I've had a track record of doing this for my family, and they because when I if I tell my family I'm going to do this, I will do it wholeheartedly for them. Yeah. But if there's certain things that change and I wasn't aware of, then they're under the understanding he's not aware of it, therefore it's okay. So when I come to them this is what's going to happen, there's no oh no, blah blah blah, that kind of stuff. It's just okay, this is what he wants. This is what he wants, and then they're very receptive to it. Yeah,
and then that's where it gives us an opportunity as well to actually be considerate to what they want.
Yeah, absolutely.
The dialogue gets easier. Yeah, if they're receptive.
Yeah, my family are awesome, so they're pretty cool.
Yeah. So it's gonna be amazing. Yeah, so excited for the whole shebang. Yeah. Very easy planning it so far. Like I said, the date, and that was the hardest part.
The date and the guest list, right?
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And we kind of complement it, because the cultural one, it's more open. So I felt even though it's a lot of pressure on that, but then it's we can invite them to the other one. So it was it made it easier to make decisions.
Yeah.
It's different.
It's been fun.
Yeah.
I think that was, that's as I said, the dates. But besides that, because the goal was, I guess, to not have her stressing out, because for her it's if we have to use tons of people, she's not going to be present, because all the decisions she's going to be thinking on the day while she's probably putting on her wedding dress. Is this person there, this person there, where it's just if we can alleviate that, then planners. She can just be absolutely present on the date. Yeah. And then she can be, and I want to remember that day where she was actually focused, and she loved that day because she could just focus on one thing. Yeah. Which we've done pretty well and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation, and we've gone through a lot of different things. And I think it's kind of hard to find an endpoint, because obviously this relationship is going to last forever. So I actually think what would be really interesting is if you guys were willing to do maybe every 5 years or something, to recap of what's happening, how you're feeling, some of these processes that you've gone through. obviously that, means that this podcast is going to live for a very long time too.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's been a really interesting process to walk through this with you. And I think there's a lot of things that people can take from what we've said. And one of the things that I feel that I can take away from it is that there's actually a lot of complementing elements between your personalities and your upbringings that have actually helped you guys find that middle ground a bit easier.
Yeah.
And you were willing to be vulnerable with each other. And I think that's been really great to see as a friend of yours, and seeing the outside version of it to be here and having this conversation. Yeah.
Thank you.
Amazing. Well, thank you. This has been so fun.
Yeah.
And we'll have to do another part.
Yeah.
I think to continue the conversation.
Further
conversation. More to be continued.
Yeah.
Maybe the audience can have more questions for us.
Oh my God, that would also be good. If you want to reach out and find Mesret, and find the Life After Adoption podcast and send through some questions that you have of your own, that would be awesome.
Yeah, sounds good. Amazing. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Enjoy.
Bye.
Thanks, Adelaide. You're the bomb.